Welcome to Fitness Casual. Real results come from more clarity, not more effort. I'm Andrew Hayes, and with me, she's not afraid to talk about poop, Kat Best.
Hell yeah. Hi, guys.
I was at someone in my family's house last week, and they had Everybody Poops, the book, on the floor, like where their kids, and I was like, oh man, that brings me back. I read that book like 35 years ago. Do you have
That's wild.
a children's book from your childhood that you remember fondly?
One that sticks out is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Oh, yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
really good one with all the food falling from the sky. I just remember like really thinking that was interesting. And then when the movie came out, it by this time I was like in my 20s or something, but when I watched it, like brought it all back. But I just thought that was like the most interesting book. But there's so many. I like Llamas in Pajamas. That's a big one. But there's so many. But yeah, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was like peak childhood book.
I haven't seen that movie. I guess I'll have to. Maybe my kids
Oh
would
my
like
God,
it.
it's so good. Your kids would love it. It's really fun.
Huh. I this is not like a hot take because he's super popular, but Shel Silverstein has the Where the Sidewalk Ends book of poems, and they're really, really good. There's some famous ones in there, and I read them with my kids now, and they love it. I think partly because it's short, but he has like almost like the Pixar mentality of this is funny for adults, but also still entertaining for
Yeah.
kids, or vice versa, whatever. And so I think he really nails it with like we all enjoy reading that as opposed to sometimes these kids book you're like Spot goes to the store. Like, oh my God, I have to read this freaking book again. So Shel Silverstein, shout out. Always entertaining. Still read it as an adult, which is great.
Yeah, I remember that. You just brought me back.
That's right. So, Kat, I do a lot of calls for our business, free calls, consultation calls, all that kind of stuff. And something that people rarely bring up until I ask: gut health, constipation, bowel movements, poop. They always have the same reaction. They turn a little red. They say, this is TMI. They get a little uncomfortable. And of course, like, one, I'm just a professional, so it doesn't rattle me. But also, I've had so many of these conversations that it's so normalized now for me. And so we're here to normalize talking about poop. Kat, where do you want to start?
Yep,
One of your favorite topics, I believe.
it is. I love gut health, but I don't know why, but I enjoy talking about poop because one, I think it's just funny that it's so uncomfortable for people. And I really think like if I can do my part in the world to get people to be less embarrassed and be more vocal in this department, that will make an impact. And poop is a vital sign. It's incredibly important. So we need to normalize the conversation around it. I don't think it should be a taboo topic. No, I don't think you should sit down at dinner and talk about your bowel movement habits. But I think if you've been constipated your whole life and you're 50 years old, we shouldn't be afraid to bring it up. And I see that a lot, and it's just really shocking. And one thing to know is like 15 to 20% of adults are chronically constipated. I think it's high because it's probably underreported due to just actual embarrassment or people not knowing that it's a problem. I have worked with so many people where it is not mentioned on their onboarding form. It is not mentioned anywhere until we do our in-depth holistic analysis, which walks you through 250 symptoms, and you have to tell me where you're at on that spectrum. A lot of them are around diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas, frequency of your bowel movements. So that is how I learn about people's habits. They usually do not tell me that information. Sometimes they will. Sometimes people are very concerned about it, but sometimes it comes up and they're like, yeah, but I've never pooped regularly. I've only gone 3 times a week for, the last 20 years. And it's just like, now I have to tell that person that that's not normal, but because they didn't even know. But then sometimes, and I'll say mostly with men, when I talk to them about poop, they get very embarrassed. And I get it, but I think we just want to, it's not gross. It's not too much information because it is a vital sign and it's incredibly important. And bloating, constipation, or just GI discomfort in general is so normalized in today's world. Almost like being bloated is just like to be expected, when that's very much not how anybody's body should feel. And I do think over reliance on caffeine and laxatives is the only approach for people to poop. Like, how many people have I talked to? They're like, yeah, well, I drink my coffee and then I go poop. I'm not mad that that sequence of events happens, but we can't like rely on coffee to have a bowel movement. Like that's not a good sign. And then having a laxative is by far like the last thing we should do, only if we're in like an extreme situation. And those things completely ignore the root cause of what's going on. So I want to start with first talking about what is poop. We all know what it is, but no one knows like what it is. So poop is 75% water and 25% fiber. It's made of bacteria, good and bad, cells, mucus, and undigested material. This is really your body's trash removal system for things that you don't need or want in your body. Hormones, like excess hormones, that's where they come out. Toxins and undigested food, like all of these things need to leave your body. So it's very important that this system is functioning. Bowel movement frequency and consistency has been linked to all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic health. So you better believe there's a connection between your frequency of your bowel movements and your overall health. And I quite literally think the frequency of your poop tells us a little bit about your lifespan and your health span. So, there's so much correlation here, and it's just something that no one talks about, but it is, if I meet women who are constipated, I know they're gonna have hormone imbalance. Probably they might have an autoimmune condition. Hashimoto's is a really common one with like chronically constipated people, but it's just one of those things that you can really see patterns over time based on the type of bowel movements someone has.
I just want to repeat that one more time. Bowel movement frequency and consistency have been linked to all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic health. So long term, we're talking about lifespan, and also short term, stop cutting your calories if maybe you don't have the right poop schedule, which we'll talk about. I just want to emphasize the importance. This is not something, as much as we're trying to make this light so it's approachable, like this is a serious thing.
Yeah. And, our bodies wouldn't do something every single day or multiple times a day if it wasn't incredibly important. So why do we even poop? This is because this is really a primary way that your body detoxes. And if you're not pooping regularly, think of it this way: you are like recycling toxins and internal garbage just on repeat in your body. Things are not getting out. And if we put it that way, it does not sound all that great then to be constipated. Your poop is how your body eliminates excess hormones. Estrogen is a big one. So if your body is not having regular bowel movements, you might not be getting rid of estrogen, and that can be reabsorbed in the body. This definitely leads to estrogen dominance in people. This is why when I say like constipated women tend to have high estrogen, this is kind of what could be going on here, which can lead to more PMS, weight gain, fibroids even, acne. Like if you're not getting hormones out, they will be recirculated into the body. And this is important to know. And this also works, for men. Men, you definitely don't want to have high estrogen, and this can also be related to that. So just know that this is how your body gets rid of excess hormone. Otherwise, you do not want them floating around and hanging out. We definitely want our bodies to be able to get rid of that. Your poop also balances your microbiome and keeps your immune system in check. So 70% of your immune system lives in your gut. And if waste lingers, then your immune system stays on high alert, which is not meant to happen for long periods of time. So your body is thinking like something is up, what's going on, and it's focusing on that. So it's taking away from other things that your immune system should be doing, which is why we talked about it a lot in the episode about getting sick, which is like if you're having healthy bowel movements, it's probably a good sign that your immune system is doing better. But if you find that things get really irregular down there, it could be a sign that your immune system might be on its way to being a little compromised as well. And having regular poops also regulates inflammation by eliminating toxins from food, environment, alcohol, etc. So anything you eat or even put on your skin or whatever you're exposed to that's a toxin, this really helps clear it out of the body. This helps prevent bloating or skin issues. And anytime you have toxins lingering for a long period of time, this triggers like a low-grade inflammatory response, which isn't good. And also, the sluggish bowel movements can impact your mental clarity, even linked to cognitive issues, brain fog, low energy. A lot of this stuff is related because your body is just not getting these things out. So they are circulating and they're making you feel worse because your body just cannot eliminate them. So when you think about your bowel movements, because right now I'm sure you are, we're going to go through some green flags and red flags. So, poop green flags are you have one bowel movement per day minimum, ideally in the morning. So, you could definitely have more than one. It is good if you have at least one, usually in the morning hours. That's like the best time. But I do think having a consistent rhythm is a good sign. If it's always all over the place, that could be a sign of things being a little bit off. But if you're at least having one every day, I think that's what we want. That's what I tell clients. Like, that's the expectation. We want to get there. If we're not there, or if you're there and all of a sudden something changes, something is off and we should just address why. Doesn't always mean we need to do something. Could be high stress, could be travel, but it's just good to be aware that that happened. It should be about 12 to 24 hours of transit time. So that means if something you ate an hour ago is in your poop, not good, too fast. And if it's something, and if it takes forever to come out or more than 24 hours, that's a sign of too slow. So that's just a sign that like your intestines should be operating on like a good rhythm here, and things can either be too fast or too slow, but that's kind of what you're looking for as far as a healthy amount of time. I think people are not aware of that fact, so that's just one good thing to keep in mind. When you are going to the bathroom, it should come out pretty easily with no straining or urgency. We should not be sprinting to the bathroom because you're gonna poop your pants, and you also shouldn't be sitting there pushing so hard. This is how hemorrhoids happen, all sorts of other issues. So it should be like pretty easy, and you also shouldn't be, I'm sorry, but you should not be sitting on the toilet for like 10 minutes. If you are, you're trying to escape your family or something, maybe not trying to work, I don't know. But I do think like no one should be spending an extended amount of time sitting on the toilet. That's a sign that like maybe it's not time to go, or you're pushing too hard, or something's wrong. So if you're in that habit, it's definitely not something you want to do, because that can lead to strain and hemorrhoids and fissures and like other things that you definitely don't want to happen. As far as what it should look like, so there's something called the Bristol Stool Scale. Everyone should probably Google this. It's fascinating. And there's different types that we're looking for, for your bowel movements. So we are looking for a type 3 or 4 on this Bristol Stool Scale, which basically means it is smooth, sausage-like with minimal cracks. If you are having like rabbit poop, like tiny little pellets, not good. If it's super liquidy, also not good. If it's coated in mucus, not good. If this is grossing you out, I'm glad, because we're at least thinking about it. But this is why like it's a topic people are freaked out by. Or sometimes I've had people be like, hey, why is my poop floating? If all of a sudden your poop starts to float, that is a sign of something else. Maybe it could be undigested fats. Like, I'm really happy when people share this with me, because it's like, we have something to work with now. And a lot of people don't know that that's also something to look for. So yeah, if it's floating, not good. The smell, honestly, there should be no foul odor. So I'm talking about things that smell like sulfur or undigested food or whatever. It shouldn't smell all that bad. Yes, obviously there's a smell, but you know the difference between a really bad smell and a normal bad smell. So pay attuned to that. Like, there is something going on, maybe something you ate your body didn't like. But if you are constantly having like a foul odor, including gas, that's definitely a sign that your body is not digesting something properly. And at the very end, a very strong green flag is it feels like there was a complete evacuation. It should feel like that was complete. There's nothing left, and I think a lot of people do not experience this, or they go a little bit, but it's not quite right. And I think that's also a common thing with constipation is maybe you can get a little bit out, but that wasn't everything. And it's just a feeling you have, but we're just looking for a complete evacuation. All right, so those are your green flags. Those are things that are good that we want to happen. Now, for the red flags, this would be not having bowel movements for multiple days. So we do not want to go a couple days without having them. If it's very much an exception to your normal, that happens sometimes, I get it. But if this is something for long term, I 100% would look at this there's some sort of issue. Could be lack of fiber, could be a hormone issue. But I work with lots of constipated women, and it's usually just a couple similar things. And I haven't had anyone so far that we weren't able to get regular again to. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. I think it's very manageable.
It works really well with children too. We don't typically give
Mm-hmm.
pediatric advice, Kat. That's not our area of specialty, but super common in kids with their beige diet. We did a whole episode and
Yeah.
course on this, but I've seen it in my kids. Most parents have just like getting some fiber in there. Find something fibrous that they enjoy.
Yep.
Avocado. Most kids just house fruit. Just make that part of their diet, because their beige diet is doing the opposite. And not only will that help, with all the stuff we're talking about, but like all the behavioral issues that go with it and the sleep challenges and everything, like it's, as we're talking about, it's important. If your kids aren't pooping, and it's pretty common, you gotta
Yeah.
fix that.
That is really important. I think I hear a lot of people, their kids don't poop, and then the only solution is Metamucil or Miralax. Like that's it. Like
Yep.
there's nothing else. It's just that. Um, yeah, not the best. But okay, back to other red flags. Blood, mucus, or color change. So if it's beige, black, gray, or red, that's not a good sign. And maybe that sounds wild to you, but this actually happens. Like people will have beige poop. These are signs of other things going on. So that's why if we know what your consistency is like, the urgency, the frequency, the color, it's actually quite simple to pinpoint maybe the root cause of what's actually going on. So these things are really important. And if you're not used to thinking about this, it's just good to be aware of. And then the last red flag is long-term use of laxatives or other aids without results. So if you have to use a laxative to poop, one, that's why, because you're just relying on it. But if you take one or you do an enema or something and you're also not like having a bowel movement, definitely not a good sign. So those are things to pay attention to. And frequent laxative use is more common than we may think. It's usually very shameful, something people do in secret, but it is a thing that people who are heavily constipated or want to lose weight will abuse, which makes it a lot harder for your body to produce natural bowel movements. All right, so how to have better poops. So we're looking for solutions here, and I think this is where functional approach really shines, because this is like what matters most here. One is hydration. Hit your water minimum always and drink a lot more water if you're active. Electrolytes can also be helpful here, but poop is mostly made of water, so drinking enough water is very, very important. I've seen many people just drink enough water, and now we are regular. We are good to go. Water is very important. Fiber, next, obviously super important, soluble and insoluble. I would say for women, aim for 25 grams minimum. For men, let's aim for about 35 grams. But if you're consuming more than about 2,000 calories per day, I think somewhere around 30 or more is good. Those numbers are also dependent on the fact that men typically need to eat more food than women. But in my optimal range, I really like to see people between like 35 or higher, for good consistency there. Movement is actually really good. It stimulates the peristalsis muscles, which help bowel movements happen. This is why marathon runners tend to have explosive diarrhea mid-run, because they are running, they are moving, there is motility, there is stuff that's making the intestines move, and that also can create urgency. So for some people, if you're a little constipated, if you go on like a brisk walk, that can actually be really helpful. So movement can be really helpful here for digestion. I don't think you need to do much beyond going on a walk, but just keep in mind that being more sedentary sometimes can backfire. But if you're highly active, you may get urgency, and that's also why. Blood flow in that area and all that stuff. Positioning is a really fun one. So we've maybe all heard about the squatty potty.
Yep.
I think it's actually very effective because it just puts you in a better anatomical position, where the colon is not bent at the very bottom, the colon is straight. So it's just easier to get it out. I think it's very easy to just put your feet up on something. Does not need to be a squatty potty, but just have your feet elevated up on something, and it will make it a lot easier. You have to do less pushing. And for people who struggle with chronic constipation, this is actually really important, because you just cannot be pushing and straining to get something out. So just put yourself in a better position, and it can actually be really helpful. And I would say that's good for anyone, even if you don't have poop issues. It is good to do that if you can. Stress plays a big role here. Chronic fight or flight really locks up your gut. I am someone that I am very, my GI health is very dependent on stress. I can tell when things are off, when I am more stressed, but mental, or I would say people who are type A, perfectionist people who train a lot, people who overfunction, people who do a lot tend to also struggle a lot in this department. And there's a reason why, because you're chronically in a state of stress. Digestion, or all of that process really happens when you're in a place of rest. So if you're on the go all day and you're moving all day long, maybe you're just too stressed out. But I think this is why having it happen in the morning hours is a good sign of being in a good rhythm here. If this is you, then I think even things like breath work or eating slow, eating away from high stress environments. So don't eat your lunch in front of your work computer where you're already stressed out. Those things actually can help with digestion. We need to protect the gut microbiome by having a good balance of bacteria. It's really important to eat probiotic rich food, eat foods that have digestive bitters like leafy greens, eat anti-inflammatory foods. All of these things help your gut microbiome, which is crucial for having regular bowel movements. If you have parasites, candida, food sensitivities, or anything else that like really strongly disrupts the microbiome, you must address those things. You may not know you have those things, and that's why seeking out help with people who understand what's going on is important. But there are some people who just have like actual infections or bad bugs in there that are creating issues, and sometimes you could do all the things and it's not being addressed. So just important to keep that in mind. But you can usually tell when there's like a gut dysbiosis going on from other symptoms someone might have. Consistent eating actually is a really good one. Your gut likes routine and rhythm. So if you're eating more frequently and you're eating, good sized meals, eating enough protein, fiber, fats, all of that, that does help promote regularity. People who eat like one meal a day, or like maybe we skip breakfast, maybe we don't, like sometimes that is more confusing for the body. This is also why travel is a major disruptor of bowel movements. I am definitely one of those people, if I go anywhere, if I leave my home, I am not pooping on vacation, and it's a bummer, and a lot of people are like that, and there's various reasons why, but one of them is you're just not in your routine. You are disrupted, we are eating at different times, we are eating different foods, we're doing different things, and for some people that's also really stressful, but it's, I feel there's a word, I forget what it is, but there's a word for someone who can't poop not in their own home. So It's like a really common thing, but if that's happening just on vacation, not a big deal. But if that's happening all the time where it's like really impacting you on a regular basis, then there's something we need to look into there. I also think last point here is a strong morning routine. Drink water right when you wake up. Eat a balanced meal, slowly, I would say within 2 hours of waking up. Do not rush, and that could also prevent a morning bowel movement if you're like panicking, getting a coffee, running to work, like dropping your kids off. If we're in like chaos mode, that can be really hard. And I know for some people, there's nothing we can do here, but I think trying to make sure that the first 30 minutes to an hour that you're awake, we can try to make that as calm on the body as possible is a really good way to go. So just do your best there. But I do think drinking water and eating some breakfast can be really helpful there, like way more than you think. So those are a bunch of things that you can do to have better bowel movements, but none of that really matters if we do not address the root cause or try to on why you aren't regular to begin with. So there's always a reason why your digestion is what it is. Whether it's amazing, whether it's always been difficult, there is a reason why, and it's constantly evolving. So if you're someone who's never constipated and all of a sudden you hit perimenopause, or you have kids and now you're really constipated, that's because your body's always changing. You may never go back to your previous state. The gut microbiome is amazing and always evolving, so things could change at any time, so you just always need to stay aware. And remember, poop is a vital sign, so monitor any changes and look for trends. If all of a sudden your poop is floating, or all of a sudden the color changes, or the smell changes, like those are things to really clue into to see if it regulates or if something's actually up here. And again, this is super embarrassing for a lot of people, but just make a mental note. You don't need to go tell people, but I need you to pay attention to this because we cannot ignore like this immediate feedback your body gives you every single day to see what's going on. And last thing I'm going to leave you with is that there are so many things that attribute to the gut microbiome. Everyone has a very different situation, but I have yet to see someone who cannot improve. So you could be from a place, we have a client who she told me for her entire life, she is like in her late 40s now, she said her whole life she has never been like not constipated. She's only gone to the bathroom maybe 3 times a week, and I felt so bad for her because like I get it, it's just a terrible place to be, but now we have her going more times a week. We're not at every day yet, but we're almost there, and for her I think that's the most powerful shift we've made. She's very happy about it, and I'm very happy about it. So it's like we can really, with a couple different tweaks, make changes. And for some people it's food sensitivities, for some people it's fiber, for some people it's water. That's where working with a professional who also can assess all of these things so we can see like, all right, you're doing that, so let's go to the next thing, is really important. And that's kind of how I approach it, is I start with the easiest things first. And if things don't get better over time, we can always get more granular with dietary eliminations or things, but I'm never going to start with like, hey, let's get rid of dairy, because why would we do that if you're not drinking enough water or eating enough fiber, you know? So that would be the best next step if you are doing all the above things or you feel like you need help getting there. But just know that not pooping all the time is definitely not normal. It needs to be addressed. And also having diarrhea is not normal. Having bloating, gas, heartburn, you know, any of these issues is not normal, but there's always something you can do, I'm sure. So I hope that brings hope to everybody. But, you know, I know this may sound gross, but we all learned a little bit about poop today. So go share it with your friends.
I wanna add one thing as Kat, just like you, had my own journey. There's something that's not talked about enough when it comes to this topic, which is also, I think that the technical term is the gut-skin loop or the gut-skin nerve loop, but like your skin is very much tied to it. There's a lot of skin conditions that can come from having GI issues, which then becomes like a second symptom, and then vice versa. You can have skin issues, which then impact your gut. And so it's really important to remember that too. I won't get into like, there's a lot of debate around whether you should be using soap and whether you should even be using toilet paper, and like talk to your doctor about that. But remember that like a lot of times just having skin conditions can lead to irritated gut, which can then make your skin condition worse. It's called the vicious cycle. A lot of people have itching and they don't talk about it again because it's very uncomfortable, but it's something like 20% of the population has it. And so remember that as well. Like it's all connected. Having a better diet, you know, proper hygiene, of course, but like all of this stuff is a factor. And so it's all connected as always.
Yeah. And don't be embarrassed. You know, it's important to be aware of and be able to talk about, because it's like foundational to your overall health. Like, you know, if any of our clients are listening, you know, I know about your poop patterns because it's important and it does matter, and no one will care as much as me. But it is, you know, I think it's just a fascinating area where it really makes a huge difference if we are doing well in that department. So it's important.
That's right. I'm excited to see our content for the week around this topic. I'm sure we'll have the Bristol Stool Scale out. Maybe we'll have some kind of quiz, Kat. We haven't decided, and we do have a program in the works specifically around bloating. So maybe we'll tie that in as well. But tons of information here, Kat. Thank you for not only being an expert on this topic, but for being a personal champion to normalize it, which I love. So you can get more from Kat and her love of talking about poop on Instagram at CatBestWellness. You can find me on Instagram at Andrew Hayes Life. If you want to chat with lots of people about poop where it's not taboo, come to our Alta Life community. You can find the link in the show notes. Kat, any parting words?
No, I think we're good.
Eat your fiber.
Yeah, eat your fiber, drink your water. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. See you for the next one, everybody.
Bye, guys.